Jonesy, last week on the podcast, I read out some comments on our YouTube channel. We are West Ham Podcast on YouTube. Go over there and subscribe. I read out some comments. Audi alias TT was the username of the guy who had directed 7 comments in my direction, particularly in in reaction to my sort of calling for Declan Rice to just play a bit more disciplined, and suggestions that Thomas Souček's poor form is in part related to Declan Rice is going forward all the time. I read those out last week, and one of the comments that made me laugh the most from Audi alias TT was, Pew, you're beginning to sound like someone who doesn't watch us. Pew, do you even watch the games? Pew, have you ever seen West Ham play? Questions along those lines. I mean, having been to hundreds of West Ham games in my life, having been to my first game when I was 4, I'm now 30. Having had a season ticket since I was 9, every season bar 1, I think, when I was out of the country for a year. I've watched an awful lot of West Ham games in my time, probably too many than I'd have liked, really, much more than I'd have liked. I made a bit of a song and dance for it on the podcast last week. So naturally, I didn't watch the Wolves game on Saturday because I was working. I had the pleasure of working and going down to Southampton versus Everton at St Mary's, and I was in the car on the way back. The signal was terrible. So yeah, I've obviously watched the highlights, extended highlights, but at risk of being one of the biggest hypocrites in the history of podcasting, I'm going to hand over to you for the majority of the reaction. Although, given the choice, between someone who wasn't at the game at all and didn't watch it live and someone who had 8 pints, I feel like the level and the quality of analysis for West Ham 2, Wolves 0, just our second Premier League win of the season, maybe perhaps lower than any paying punters could certainly expect anyway.
Well, we'll point out that by the time the game kicked off, I'd probably only had about 5. So
okay, a few,
give or take.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it wasn't. It was. I think we were quite fortunate that Wolves were so bad on the day, but at the same time, we deserved the win. I thought we were well worth the win. It was good to actually see some of our new signings starting. For a start, literally, it was like, this is
absolutely.
Nice. I thought Tilo Kehrer at right back was. A few people were really surprised about that, but actually. He played right back for Germany against England and looked pretty good. I thought he looked quite solid.
He was good, wasn't he? Yeah.
And a few people in the pub were like, "What's he doing? He was centre back playing at right back." And I was like, "No, it's good. That's an inspired selection from David Moyes." And it turned out all right because he had another superb game. Lovely to see Craig Dawson back. But I think it was just it was the closest performance one of the closest performances this season. That's kind of we're kind of getting back to as good as we were last season in stages. Wolves didn't really threaten us at all. I think the closest they really came was when they had the goal disallowed for offside, Diego Costa offside. But it was a relatively comfortable 3 points. And just so good to see a lot of the new signings not just play, but play important roles in the performance and in the win. Scamacca's finish was wonderful, and again, obviously, you could see Jarrod Bowen back on the score sheet. But yeah, a good performance all round, mate. To be fair, it was like Souček was a lot better than he has been. Declan Rice probably still not at his peak that we're so used to seeing him, but a better performance from him. Thought Bukayo was effective. So yeah, I can't really complain. The only question mark I had was Cornet went off injured midway for the first half.
That horrible tackle, by the way.
Yeah. And then I thought, because it's almost like a like for like change, I thought we'd bring Ben Rama on. He didn't, and I thought that was just a bit of a strange one. for me.
Yeah,
Because
who?
Benrahma's been so good this season. And it was just I think Fornals come
Fornals
off.
who come on. Yeah. Fornals, Antonio, and Emerson were the three to come off the bench during the game. Cornet, Paqueta, and Scamacca coming off.
Yeah, and I think given how good Benrahma's been this season, I think he's been good. I think it was probably a little bit unlucky not to start. Although I know last week I was calling for Cornet to start.
Yeah.
But then to not come on when Cornet's forced to come off injured, I thought was a bit of a strange decision. I feel a bit sorry for him because I think he did. As I say, he was probably unlucky not to start the game. But still, I mean, it didn't really matter in the end. But the fact is, we've got that strength in depth now, which is what we didn't have last year. So that's all good. But yeah, it was a good performance. Happy with it.
So Gianluca Scamacca, 29 minutes, absolute rasper of a finish. Did take the smidgenest. That's not a word, but it just took a smidge of a deflection off of the Wolves defender's head on its way in. Smidgenest. I mean, come on, I could do better than that, can't I? Crikey. Yeah, took an ever so slight deflection off the Wolves defender on the way in, but set up nicely, pinged it in. It's funny because when you watch the replay, you're looking at it going, because the ball's out wide in the wide position, and you're looking at it going, get in the box. What are you doing? Get in the box. You're the centre forward. Someone's got the ball out wide with no out ball. Like there's no ball into the box there. What on earth are you doing on the edge of the box? You're the centre forward. And then it falls to him. He controls it and rifles it in. But I was still sort of left going, okay, good finish, but you shouldn't have been there. I was like, you should be in the box, and then the number 10 should be in that position on the edge of the area. But brilliant finish. Good to hopefully good for Scamacca's confidence. He does that celebration, Jonesy, where he puts the old finger behind the ear, and it just rattles me that, because I'm like, what you having a go? Are you having a go at the fans, or are you giving it I can't hear you, or like I hope what are you talking about? Because maybe you can, like, a bit like Nigel Reo-Coker. Remember the goal he scored against Man United? I think it was Alan Kirbishley's first game in charge. Proof to anyone who wonders whether I watch games, by the way. Class, a little bit of memory there. But we beat Man United. Reo-Coker scored. And he'd been getting a load of deserved stick in the build-up to that game. And he goes in front of the Bobby Moore fans, the Bobby Moore stand, giving it these ones, hand behind the ear, as he was celebrating his goal. And I don't know, I'm sure Scamacca's not doing that.
Nah.
But it's just annoying. I don't know, I just hate it as a celebration.
I think whoever interviews him next needs to ask him the meaning behind it, because there's got to be a meaning behind it. He's done it every goal he scored for us. Although this time, I think it's the first time he's actually smiled while doing it, because he's always had that really very like Haller-esque, like arrogant,
which I hate,
look on his face when he scores. It's like,
are you happy about it?
Yeah, I know I'm good. This time he actually looked delighted that he'd scored, but he still did that hand beyond the ear. Someone's got to ask him. He needs to clear that up. But I agree. Like when he scored his first goal for us and he did that, I was like, oh my God. Like, has he already cottoned on the fact that people are like, mate, like having a pop at him for not scoring a goal? But yeah, great for his confidence, that goal. And I think you could tell in his face that he was delighted to get off the mark in the league. And just proof that give these players starts and they'll make a difference. Like, it's just got to play him more. Proof that I think the proof of that one is that he does fit in a Moyes system. Not just because he scored, but he played well as well. Which there were some question marks whether actually is he the right striker for this system. And I think he proved on Saturday that he can be. But yeah, do his confidence the world of good. Passing for him.
Well, yeah, I am as well. One thing I will say is that I don't know. We already know that members of the first team squad listen to this podcast, right? Still to be confirmed whether Arthur Masuaku still listens after his move to Turkey. I really hope he does. I do miss Arthur. not as a footballer, of course. But I think that performance against Wolves at the weekend, the team selection, all that sort of thing, is as close to proof that Moisey listens, isn't it? Because we were calling for changes and to see acknowledgement from him that things haven't been working. We mentioned Cornet, didn't we? We mentioned Soufal's been struggling. And we wanted Scamacca to start ahead of Antonio up front. We said stick with Bowen because you can't afford to drop him because you know he's got the quality there. He scores, great for his confidence. All right, we didn't see Moisey's obviously come up with one of his own ideas in playing Kehrer at right back instead of Soufal, but we sort of prompted him by saying we should drop Vladimir Soufal in the first place. So I suppose firstly it's like, all right, Moisey, glad to have you with us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the support. Don't feel like you have to subscribe to the YouTube or anything like that. Appreciate you've got to keep your head down a bit and you can't be publicly back in a fan podcast. Totally understand that. But sort of, you know, for the positive side of things, Jonesy, good to hear that Moisey's finally listening to our sort of tactical suggestions and all that.
100%. Yeah, I mean, apart from the fact that it was painfully obvious that those were the changes he had to make, it's very obvious that he listens as well.
That is more obvious than the changes that were needed, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, just a nod to Big Dave. So, welcome.
Well, well, you say welcome. You would have thought he'd be listening for a while, wouldn't you? You know, the word goes around the changing rooms.
Maybe.
Yeah. You wouldn't have thought. And even if it's not, because, you know, sometimes there's a bit of distance between the manager and the squad. Kevin Nolan's sort of that bridge, isn't he? Between the two, between the main group and and Moisey. So you'd have thought someone would have mentioned it to Super Kevin. He'd have passed the message on.
Probably. I suppose his cover's blown now, isn't it? Because it's very obvious that he does listen. So
yeah, that is true, mate. Yeah. But I hope, do you reckon he'll get asked about it in his next TV interview or anything? Or it's one of them who just shut that down. I don't want to talk about it. Next. Yeah, fair enough. Anything else to note, Jonesy? I think the goal for Jarrod Bowen, hugely important. We were mentioning last week, weren't we, how well he needs to sort of get back to those levels. Confidence looked a bit shot. Nice little goal, actually. He took it really well. Awkward to control, sort of bouncing up and what have you. And then nice and tight little finish. Fires it into the bottom right corner from a tight angle. Wraps the game up, makes everyone a little bit more comfortable. Happy days.
Yeah, I think he was probably the one I was getting most concerned about in terms of confidence, given the season he had last year. The fact that he did go away with England but didn't get a minute. I just felt like, you know, if you lose a player like that in terms of confidence, then you've got a massive hole in your team, regardless of how much you spend in the summer. And you know, so yeah, we just got to hope he kicks on. But his whole performance on the day really showed like he'd got a little bit of his old self back. You know, even the build up to Scamacca's goal, you know, he's running in, causing all sorts of bother in Wolves' area. Probably unlucky not to get his shot away properly. Obviously, it was blocked. But then throughout the game, he just looked like Jarrod Bowen of last season at times, like more so than we've seen him so far this season. And you know, massively deserved his goal. So yeah, massive for his confidence. And you know, if we continue, well, if you know he can build on that, and obviously Scamacca can build on his, then you know, absolutely no reason why we can't start climbing up the table. But he was the one I was more concerned about, and probably the one I was most happy about on Saturday when the goal at the back of the net, because it's more of a relief than anything that we haven't, that he's not, that he's getting back to the one that scored 18 goals in all competitions last year.
Yeah, no, absolutely brilliant to see Jarrod back on the score sheet. Moisey, I think, was pleased for him after the game as well. One thing, James, when we were 2-0 up, and it appeared that we sort of retreated back into ourselves a little bit, and sat a little bit deeper, invited Wolves onto us almost. And obviously, Daniel Pedence has the goal disallowed for offside after Diego Costa came off the bench. I heard him getting roundly booed, which was quite funny.
Yeah.
But obviously, if that goes in, fortunate not to be offside. Was there any concern on your part that was, I think it was sort of with 20 minutes ago, 72 minutes that was, that disallowed goal. Was there any concern on your part that we were 2-0 up and actually we invited a little bit of unnecessary pressure on us? And if that had been given, that goal could have gone, could have gone the other way.
I mean, that goal came as a result of a counter-attack. So when that goal did go in, obviously it was disallowed, but when it did go in, it did feel like it was against the run of play a little bit. And it would have been really annoying. And I think perhaps if it does stand, then we're clearly under a lot more pressure to hold on and get the 3 points or try and get a third goal. Thankfully, it was ruled out. But looking back, I don't really feel at any moment where I was like, cool, we need to get a third here just to be sure. Like, we were comfortable. And like I said right at the beginning, I think we were fortunate in that respect that Wolves were so low on confidence. Obviously, Lage got sacked the next day. So low on confidence, really just sort of going 2-0 down in a game that, I know we were debating whether it was must-win for either team last week. I think it's probably more must-win for them than us because they were far more down.
Certainly for Bruno Lage,
So you go 2-0 down and the players know.
Even though they were above us in the league, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the players know that Bruno Lage is under a lot of pressure. They would have known from inside the camp that, lose this and the boss has gone. They would have known full well that was the situation. And they go 2-0 down away from home against a team that have also struggled to score goals and have also struggled to win games this season. I mean, from a confidence point of view, do you recover from that? I don't know. I mean, group of players that have barely been performing anyway. And I think that's what we saw from Wolves. And I think, thankfully, that was the situation because I think any other team, and they might have at 2-0, put us under a little bit more pressure and tested us a little bit more. But Wolves just didn't really give us that. It was relatively comfortable. And, given that, perhaps we could have gone on and got a couple more and improved that goal difference a little bit. But it's 3 points all the same, isn't it? So, yeah, I don't think maybe at 2-1 it would have been a little bit ropey, but despite that, I think it was a comfortable win.
Yeah, and honestly, mate, and I'm just looking at the table now. We're 15th, 7 points, 8 played, 2 wins, 1 draw, 5 defeats. As we've already mentioned, I think that Nottingham Forest game, we were so unlucky. I genuinely think like we could have got 4 extra points out of that, and it wouldn't be unreasonable like that. Our performances have perhaps warranted those. We also hit the post. Benrahma comes on and hits the post at Everton. That defeat could turn into a draw. Okay, we perhaps weren't full value for 3 points at Aston Villa either. So you could perhaps say we only, could have got a draw there, which cancels it out a bit. But even if you give us 4 extra points from those performances, we'd be level on points with Fulham, who we play this weekend, and Newcastle, who are 7th and 8th, who people are saying they're having brilliant seasons, blah, blah, blah. I genuinely just think we've been on the bad side of luck and those fine margins you talk about in football, as well as the decisions, etc., etc. So, and I don't think it was a great surprise. Like I say, I'm looking at the teams around us there. We're 15th. Southampton, Crystal Palace, Wolves are the 3, and Nottingham Forest and Leicester are the teams below us. Above us, you've got Aston Villa, Bournemouth, Leeds and Everton. That takes you up to 11th. Now, I was at Southampton Everton on Saturday, and I know we lost at Everton, but like I said, we could have got a draw there if Benrahma's one that hits the post goes in. But honestly, we are streets better than Southampton, and we've got the exact same stats as them, other than goals scoring ones. They've also played 8, 1, 2, drawn 1, lost 5 with 7 points. They've conceded more goals, but scored more. We are way better than them. I think we can tell we're better than Aston Villa. You'd certainly say we're better than Bournemouth and Leeds as well. So I genuinely just think that over the next few weeks, as long as some of our performances start being matched by the points we get, and I think we both agreed, didn't we, Jonesy, that the last couple of seasons, really, it's been really weird for most West Ham fans because that's what's happened. Like, we've been getting odd bits of luck here and there, and we've been getting last minute winners, and we've been coming back from going a goal or two down, which is just stuff we're not used to seeing as West Ham supporters. So I think the beginning of this season, where we have had a few dodgy decisions go against us, or we have actually been a bit unlucky. I'm not saying it's not twinned with some worse performances than we've seen, but I just think where you've had the bit of luck and a couple of decisions go against you as well, a bit of bad luck, sorry, and a couple of decisions go against you, that does affect your confidence a little bit. And I think it'll be a real show of positive mentality, and hopefully that game against Wolves on Saturday is the start of that. But it'll be a real show of positive mentality if we can clamber out of this sort of situation over the next few weeks. Our next 4 Premier League games are Fulham at home, Southampton away, Liverpool away, and Bournemouth at home. Okay, the Liverpool game will be a test. They're not playing spectacularly at the moment, but it's not unreasonable for me to say that we'll likely lose at Anfield. But those other games there, if you pick up, there's no reason we can't pick up 9 points. I'm telling you, mate, Southampton were really not very good the other day. The stats seem to suggest they were, but Everton were never that worried. Pickford made a load of routine saves. One of them was quite decent. But other than that, they were 7 out of 10 saves you'd expect a Premier League goalkeeper to make. And Southampton only started playing. They really lacked quality. They're sort of a bit like we'd seen from West Ham some parts of the season, where players were sort of missing passes to each other. Just a general low quality fare from them. They only started playing after they've thrown away a lead they didn't deserve anyway. We could definitely beat them. We'll speak to Harry Durham from TalkSport next up, but by the feelings I'm getting, we should beat Fulham as well. I really genuinely am. I think the next 3 or 4 games will be huge, especially with the Anderlecht one, in between. By the end of October, we play Bournemouth on the 24th. I think I said this on last week's podcast, actually. By the end of October, it could be a whole different feeling, because we could have qualified from our Conference League group already. And if we got another 9 points on the board, I've got no doubt we'll clamber up the table a little bit. And it feels like hopefully that performance against Wolves and that victory can be the catalyst for that.
Yeah, we said last week, didn't it, after the Wolves game. Well, going into the Wolves game, the Wolves, Fulham and Southampton. If you get at least 7 out of those 9 points, the season already looks different. It's a whole different story. Anything less than that, and you do begin to seriously worry about what we're going to do this year. So yeah, and I agree that we're a better team than our next 2 opponents, and we should get 6 points really. I mean, we have been pretty good at St Mary's over the last few years. I think in the league at least. I know we lost there in the FA Cup last year. But yeah, you're right. End of this month, and suddenly it looks like a completely different story, and we can look at top 10 or maybe even a push for top 8. Will be more a reality than it was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And obviously, if we qualified from our Europa League group, particularly as winners, then yeah, suddenly we're looking at it going, it's 3 potential of having 3 consecutive seasons where it's been good. Which, looking back a few years, we used to have 1 good year, and then that would always be followed up by a few bad ones. So yeah, it all rests really in the next couple of weeks, I think. You're right about what you said about Liverpool, although they are there for the taking.
Yeah.
More so than they have been for a while. So yeah, I'm quite confident going at the Fulham game that we can get 3 points. They have been dangerous at times, but they've also susceptible, like we saw at the weekend, literally just falling apart. I know they got that red card, but they literally just fell apart against Newcastle. Didn't help that they lost Mitrovic. Hopefully he's out against us.
Don't think so. Sounds like he's likely to be back.
Yeah, well, I mean, even so, when you got Craig Dawson at the back, you shouldn't
exactly
be that worried. But yeah, I'm and then Bournemouth at the end of the month, another side that have had some good results, but they're capable of getting battered 9-0. Like, we know that.
Yeah.
So it's all three of those next 4 games we should be looking at 3 points.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Well, look, it feels just a bit more of a relief than anything to get that victory against Wolves out the way. Okay, 15th in the table isn't superb, but we should be fine. We should be fine. As long as we get another couple of wins over the next few weeks, we'll climb that table in no time whatsoever. And